this is one of our secret weapons of really healing metabolic dysfunction. And along the way, it's crazy the types of symptoms that start to be improved, because if you can heal them metabolically, you're healing the immune system, you're calming down inflammation, you're helping heal disease. It's a pretty powerful process when, all they came to in the beginning for was weight loss.
Becca, why is metabolic flexibility important? And why is it especially important if someone isn't able to lose weight?
Yeah. So a lot of people focus on the physique and the confidence aspect of not being able to lose weight. But if someone comes to me and is eating in a calorie deficit and not losing weight, and even worse, gaining weight, there's a much bigger issue at play. And so the way that I explain this is that in essence, we have two energy pathways in the body. We have what's called your mTOR pathway, which is your sugar burning pathway. That's a growth pathway. And then you have your fat burning pathway, AMPK. That's kind of your breakdown pathway, your detox pathway. So a lot of people over the course of their lives, due to maybe lifestyle factors, chronic health issues, whatever genetic predisposition a little bit, they can start to get stuck in this mTOR pathway. And mTOR is important. It's not that we don't want an mTOR pathway. mTOR is important for adolescence, for people to grow, for muscle growth. You want a good mTOR response after a workout to have muscle development. But the problem is that mTOR pathway is a growth pathway. So yes, growth of children, growth of muscle tissue, also growth of cancer, growth of unhealthy cells, disease growth. And so we need that pathway. But if we get stuck in that pathway, that is the pathway to chronic disease. And a lot of times, the way that I know someone is stuck in that pathway is 1, severe weight loss resistance. 2, we look at blood sugars. So if someone is chronically running elevated in their blood sugars, and by elevated, I'm talking, we're seeing high 90s, low 100s even. And to a conventional doctor, that's not elevated. You can be completely healthy in that range. I see that range constantly with my chronic immune cases, my female hormone cases. They aren't pre-diabetic maybe yet. They aren't diabetic, but we're running not in an optimal place. Optimal's around 78 to 90. And a lot of people are like, oh, I have a fasted glucose in that range. Fasted glucose is the picture in time. It's not the movie. A1C, insulin, and symptoms are the movie. And so if we are stuck in this mTOR pathway, we see chronic, slightly elevated blood sugars. That's one of the main things, and weight loss resistance. Now, the AMPK fat burning pathway, a lot of people are like, oh, fat burning, I want that. Yes, great. But the bigger piece is that AMPK pathway is a detox pathway. It's a breakdown autophagy pathway. And by autophagy, what I mean is autophagy is essentially this prehistoric innate response in the body to heal and clean itself. And the ways that we can stimulate that pathway, ketosis, low calorie, and fasting. And if you think about our world today, not many people are going without eating. We tend to eat pretty regularly. Going 15 hours without food is kind of a big deal. And so we do not stimulate that pathway anymore in our lives. And the bigger problem at play is, okay, I have slightly high blood sugars and I can't lose weight. To me, we're setting ourselves up for disease. We can't heal. We can't detox. We can't clean up old unhealthy cells. That is the bigger problem at play. And so, yes, people come to me wanting to lose weight. And when I'm looking at blood work or I'm looking at the person, we're seeing signs of cardiovascular risk. We're seeing signs of autoimmunity. We're seeing much bigger issues at play that maybe aren't acute issues right now, and people are more focused on the scale and how they look. But to me, I'm much more concerned about their future 10, 20, 30 years and the possibility of chronic disease happening because they are stuck in this metabolic pathway. And so that is why weight loss resistance is a much bigger problem than people think, and why metabolic flexibility is so important to develop.
And if maybe they don't know all the technical aspects, but they kind of have a sense they're stuck here. So they start to move to calorie restriction, which is one of the things you mentioned can flip on the fat burning pathway. Why could that not be enough?
Yeah. So I see this a lot actually with my ex-athletes, my females that are very active. Females that have chronically dieted, or bodybuilders, or anyone that has lived in the high protein, low calorie state for a very long time. And any female that has tried to lose weight or worked with a personal trainer probably knows what I'm talking about. You were high protein, low carb, low calorie. And so there's a mechanism within the body that if you take out carbohydrates, or even if you take out calories to a large extent, but you keep adequate protein in, your body can actually take protein and turn it to sugar. So it's a process called gluconeogenesis, to where if you take all of the other resources, but your body is truly metabolically stuck, it will do whatever it can to stay in that sugar burning state. And part of what it will do is it will take protein and it will break down your muscle. And so females then end up in a less muscled, more what I call Sophie, skinny on the outside, fat on the inside state, because they have pulled calories down and they have taken carbs out, but their body's still pumping sugar because it's turning it from their protein and it's turning it from their muscles, and they're breaking down their muscle tissue. So that case, I see it actually more frequently than you'd think. And in those cases, as crazy as it sounds, low protein keto is one of the ways that we can flip it. You have to sit in it sometimes. And sometimes you have to rotate in and out of it and go back into it, because we are trying to, in a lot of these cases, heal decades of metabolic damage. I mean, like when I think of my own case, and I've gone through this, I overtrained and underate for probably 10 to 15 years, like whether it was on purpose or not. I was training a lot, and yeah, I was quote unquote eating a lot. For me, I was eating 2,400, 2,500 calories, but like I was working out 2 to 3 hours a day. I was definitely still in a calorie deficit. So like whether females intended to do it or not, a lot of females that have chronically dieted or tried weight loss over and over and over again have created this metabolic state. And so in those cases, we have to force the body to use this fat energy source by increasing fats. And I'm not talking like 80 or 100 grams of fat. In these cases, they're eating like 150 to 160 grams of fat and less than 30 grams of protein. And so this is one of our secret weapons, per se, of really healing metabolic dysfunction. And we're tracking ketones and we're tracking blood sugars, and we're making sure that the work that we're doing is working. And this person is truly metabolically flipping. And along the way, it's crazy the types of symptoms that start to be improved, because if you can heal them metabolically, you're healing the immune system, you're calming down inflammation, you're helping heal disease. And so it's a pretty powerful process when, all they came to in the beginning for was weight loss.
Yeah. I'm sure they're thrilled to see all those other things start falling off as well. So what's a rough timeline that someone should consider doing this? And then how would someone know? Obviously, if the symptoms get better, that's a sign. But if maybe someone's in the middle or wondering if they flipped over or not, how would someone know whether this other pathway is starting to kick on again?
Yeah, that's where we see ketone production, and that's why we track it. We use the Keto Mojo a lot of times, which is a finger pricker, because it tests both blood sugars and ketones. And I want to see ketones getting in that 1 to 2.0 range, and blood sugars nice and stable. Their energy's stable. They're, not having brain fog throughout the day. And when we can sit there for a few weeks and keep levels there, and then bring back in some protein, bring back in some carbs, and blood sugars still stay stable, we know we're in a good spot. So usually timeline wise, it depends. Some people that are really metabolically dysfunctional have to go in and out of it a couple times, to kind of like do multiple rounds of quote unquote, healing and cleaning of the body, detoxification. In a lot of these cases, we're looking at like 6 to 8 weeks of sitting in that, and watching levels, and then maybe giving a little bit of a break, walking back into it, because we don't want to chronically deplete this person, right? And we really aren't usually low calorie in it. It's a whole lot of fats. And I very, I'm talking about this concept. I don't recommend just for my disclaimer, like don't go out and do this. Play around with it. Look at your blood sugars. I think it's really important for people to know their levels. I always say, look at them fasted in the morning. Look at them 2 to 2.5 hours after meals. They should be around that 80 range. If you're constantly seeing higher than that, we're dealing with some issues, and could they stay there and not really get worse? Maybe. Not typically what I see though. And so I always say to start there. A Keto Mojo's $50, $60 on Amazon, and it comes with the strips. You can do it on your own, and start to see your own levels. If any of your listeners are more of like the biohackers out there and want to do their own stuff, I think it's fascinating, and I'll probably do it forever just to monitor my levels. But it gives you a lot of feedback in terms of like, how's your body tolerating food? How's your body tolerating stress? Do workouts, are your workouts too stressful? Are your sugars staying too high after your workout? So all of those things we use as tools, and that's how I let people know like this is what we're looking for.
And how would a cycle of this way of eating be depleting if they're high fat, they're not low calorie?
Yeah. I mean, the thyroid relies on carbs. The brain needs some carbs. And so we keep fiber pretty high, and we're working net carbs, right? So we're not like no carb. I lots of vegetables on this plan. Even fiber, supports a lot of times to keep fiber up. But um, usually if we stay there for too long, especially for females, their thyroid can start to take quite a hit. And we want to ultimately get them back to eating carbs, but not being in an inflamed state from it, and not having blood sugars be in a bad place with it. So that's why we don't want them staying there for too long. It can start to be a little damaging for specifically the thyroid.
Right. And this is where your disclaimer comes in. It's, important to have help. But I'll also say that a lot of people are unknowingly doing this the other way, either eating the standard American diet or doing calorie restriction. I mean, it's extreme versions the other way, that people think that's the way we're supposed to eat, the way they've been taught. And part of the reason why people get all these metabolic issues and health issues.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I see females do more than anything is they go low carb, low calorie, and they don't replace carbs with fats. Like, what is your body supposed to run on? You aren't giving it any energy sources. And so of course it's going to become metabolically adapted. It's going to adjust things in a negative way so that you don't feel great, because if you pull one energy source, you have to give it another. And people are like, "Oh, I'm keto." I'm like, "No, you aren't. You're eating like 70 grams of fat." It's like, to be able to truly get your body to run on fats, you got to give it enough fats. And most people are not doing that, because when I finally put them in that place, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm eating so much oil." I mean, like, and so I think a lot of people think they're doing something. And in reality, they're just making things worse. So,
Well, there you go. You heard it on the podcast. Go have some carbs, go have some fats, eat and be merry.
see what your body does well with. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks, Becca.
Of course.